I definitely like this. I was calling you Goswami because when we first met, and I asked you, what should I call you? And you said Goswami. So
before the nuptials. So
so now we've moved on to Acaryadeva. Or is it Acaryadeva?
Well, Deva is Sanskrit. Deva is sort of modern Indic languages.
Ah, okay.
They drop a short A, not a long A.
Right.
Like no one says Rod or Radha.
Yeah.
So a long A is retained, which usually is a feminine word.
And Deva has the long A?
No, it's short, but
okay.
Sanskrit is Deva.
Okay.
Deva would just be like more like Hindi or Bengali. No, actually not Bengali. It's interesting. In the Hindi, they drop a short A, like Acaryadeva or Ram, and all that, Narayan, Narayana. But in Bengal, they actually pronounce a short A at the end like an O, like Babel, and they pronounce V like B. So they would say, and it's interesting why they pronounce like a J. So in Bengal it'd be Acaryadeva.
In many different, like with bhajans and different things, I hear different pronunciations a lot, and so I'm always curious, like, what the right
there is a correct pronunciation. Even bhajan is a mispronunciation because bhajan means a container or receptacle, whereas devotional singing is bhajan. Bhajana, which is pronounced just like the English word budge, like don't budge.
Bhajan.
Fudge, budge. Yeah, bhajan means container, so let's do some containers. It's pretty funny.
This is one thing, actually, China figured out nicely is standardized language. So
no, there is standardized language, and Sanskrit's just always don't know it.
Yeah.
Because even in Chinese, you can do incredible faux pas if you mispronounce things.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, every language you can get hilarious results if you mispronounce things.
Yep. So before I came to Prabhupada Village, there was one major question that's been like tearing me up for years now, which is I'd summarize as spiritual dharma versus material dharma. So materially, meaning based on like my nature and my body and whatever, it seems like teaching is really perfect for me, and I'd like to do that for many lifetimes, basically. But the material situation here in America is totally different as a teacher than in China, for instance. So in China, I can work at any big public government school, get a huge salary and huge respect and honor and all this stuff, great students. Here, I can barely get hired anywhere if I do get hired.
You mean teaching English?
Teaching anything.
Really?
But especially
how is it they don't ask for credentials or like a degree or something?
Oh, they do, but there's I mean, like if I wanted to teach not English as a second language, but teach math in China, something like that, it'd be more difficult because they already have great math teachers.
So to teach English, though, they need English teachers.
Yeah. So there's a market thing at play here too. There's really high demand, so they're willing to go a little easier on credentials.
Yeah, plus if you're a native English speaker, then
exactly.
I see.
But for me, I have my preferences, but basically I don't care as long as I'm teaching. I'm pretty much happy, and especially with children, I'm most happy.
Okay.
They're my satsanga.
So go ahead.
So, I mean, it seems like Krishna's kind of already settled, at least for now, kind of answered this question for me by bringing me here. But my situation is kind of like, well, on the one hand, I can live in a place like Prabhupada Village where there's some cows nearby, so many devotees, close-knit community. I can do all that devotional stuff really well. But as far as making a living, my choice, I'm in a totally different position where I'm like incentivized to be doing this weird entrepreneurial stuff or like construction and just random things that may not really be my dharma, as it were. So there's just a balancing act,
Do you have any college degrees?
Yeah, I have a psychology bachelor's degree.
From where?
University of Vermont.
Oh, Vermont.
Burlington, Vermont.
What was your impression of Burlington?
Loved it. It's
What's it like
it's
in
gone a
Burlington?
bit down the into the bad place
In
now.
what
But
sense? What was it and what is it now?
so originally it was genuinely friendly and liberal. Now it's like extremely liberal and like in your face,
Crazy
like agenda leftist stuff. You know,
Yeah.
like you know,
Yeah, the left has gone crazy.
it's happened to so many cities all over the place where they were a little bit like this and then just went too
Yeah,
far.
it's fanaticism and intolerance are not good.
Mm. Not good at any point of the way, I guess.
No.
That first question kind of ties into, I'd also like to preach as best I can, and like what we're talking about with the left going completely nuts. There's a lot of people in this country I don't even want to talk to. What to speak of, actually talking about Krishna consciousness. Whereas, in China, they're eating meat and they're doing lots of this sinful activity, but they're actually very open-minded, and they, mostly because I'm American and I'm white, they'll actually listen to me and take a lot of what I say quite seriously. And I could do some good preaching over there. I mean, I'd have to really get fluent in Mandarin first, but and do my dharma at the same time as a teacher. So that's kind of what I was chasing after for many years. But then COVID-19 hit, and it's just I don't want to travel anywhere now. I don't want to deal with the masks in the airport and the vaccines and all that stuff. I just want to lay low and stay close to my good devotee friends in North Carolina. I'm guessing there's still not a question there at the end. So should I try to balance spiritual dharma and material dharma, or just focus more on the spiritual dharma and then whatever happens materially, just go with it?
Yeah, I think one of the problems of the movement now, the big problem, is that everyone's kind of looking to make an arrangement where they can live peacefully and happily. There's just not that spirit that Prabhupada created before that would save the planet, so everyone just kind of makes their own little arrangement. And the planet will take care of itself. So, like when I talk to young, like say Guru Coolies, people that are literally in our schools and everything, younger, it's just something so important, so vital that Prabhupada instilled in us. It's just not really there.
Do you think it's the overarching culture that changed, or
Well,
the times?
I'm sure that is a factor, undoubtedly. But when I joined the cult, when I joined the Hare Krishna movement, my understanding was it's not about just following the outside world that doesn't know about Krishna or the soul. It's about doing our duty according to the inspiration from Lord Chaitanya or Prabhupada. So, I understand that what we can do and how we can do it is affected, seriously affected by the state of the world that we're trying to change. What people's interests are and are not. And so on. But that does not change the ultimate goal. That seems to me is invariable. We're trying to save a immersed in collective narcissism, especially in this country. But try your best, leave it all in the field, as they say.
Yeah.
So I think you should make a plan centered around, of course you have to maintain yourself, but also, what is my need? I mean, that's the question we should ask. The way I put it, there's no right answer to the wrong question. So the right question is, what is my contribution to the mission? How will I try to make a difference? Whether it happens or not, it's in Krishna's hands, but how can I try to make a difference? That's why I started Krishna West, but it's just like, to use the cliche, it's like trying to herd cats.
Getting one cat's pretty hard.
Yeah, so everyone is, not everyone's a little hyperbolic there, but there's a strong tendency for everyone just to sort of find a comfortable little spot for themselves, and the spirit we used to have, we mobilized Prabhupada's army. It's just, seems to have disappeared to a great extent. There, in a week or two, they're having a meeting of different leaders around North America, and they have this clever little thing called dreams. Like, we're gonna, like, a dream is how I'd like to see ISKCON, what ISKCON could be 8 years from now. And then everyone voted for 3 dreams. And I mean, they mean well and all that. They're nice people, devotees, but none of the dreams. I mean, they said nice things like ISKCON should be a movement where it welcomes everybody. Of course, they had to put in of all races and ethnicities and all that. They had to put that in, and we're nice to people and this and that. I mean, it's all good, but now one of the dreams said that ISKCON is a major spiritual power in the Western world, establishing the Yuga Dharma. Just sort of polite.
That seems to be the same thing that's wrong with American culture, is there's a lot of this shallow politeness without much substance beneath it,
This is such a Teflon planet. I mean, you can't get attached to it.
Fortunately, I'm not, but there's something I'm attached to where maybe it's compassion, but I just see the suffering, and my first thing is I can't be like that. And then once that's settled, it's like I should really try to help people wake up from their darkness. And so the way I see it is the West actually needs to grow up more than wake up. That's more of our problem, I think, especially among pretty much every institution I've become a part of. They're really good at this polite, superficial stuff, but the more deeper things that are really difficult and get really personal, they're not willing to, really push through and get through that and tackle the hard questions and the hard problems. And but when we do go on that path, the reward is much greater. I've seen that myself, my own personal life. Yeah, it's kind of depressing. it seems like there could be, the times are just changing. So, like, the really successful ISKCON of the 21st century might be focused more around farming and this sort of thing, which this country and similar first world Western countries are able to do. Like, if you want to start a cow protection in China or Japan or, many other countries like that in the world, good luck. I mean, how do you even start doing something like that? And you can't, but, now there's a big push for green food, green everything, and that's part of our philosophy already. So if we get really good at that, I think, it's a much slower game than Prabhupada's army, like you were talking about before, but it seems to match with what's happening, whereas, I feel like if I just go out on the street and start talking about God, I'm probably just going to get arrested. Maybe not, but... Maybe instead of this preaching stuff, we can do something more philosophical. It'll be less depressing and more interesting. Is that okay, Acaryadeva?
Ask the question one more time.
Instead of this preaching ISKCON stuff, we can do something more philosophical. Change gears a little bit. So, well, here's something I'm especially interested in is ethics. So what is Krishna's ethics system? Because it seems to transcend ethics, but there must be some sort of ethic that, we can follow and help others follow.
So anyway, I published a novel. You know about that?
Yes. I'm not a novel guy. So I haven't read a novel in years. But
it's a good story. Did you read the Gita Guide?
yeah.
I like novels, actually. I really do. I mean, I don't read 20th or 21st century novels. I don't like them. I can't stand them. But I like 19th century. Early to mid 19th century. I think it's a great art to sound properly. It kind of got to a point of overwriting, like with Dickens and George Eliot and so many writers just kind of overwrote them. I like Jane Austen, it's more... Anyway.
By overwrote, you mean they...
They tell too much. It's like they... It's almost like...
Instead of leaving it to the imagination.
They're letting the reader be a co-creator.
Yeah.
They give you every little detail, and it's just, I mean... It's almost like they're trying to do movies, but without the movie, and they didn't have the technology, but they were...
Yeah, yeah.
So they describe too much, show too much. Hare Krishna. I am here with my disciple Hridayananda, trying to figure out how this thing works here.
Looks like we got it.
Yeah, somehow I thought it was supposed to be in there, but anyway, I'm not going to worry about that. So he's going to interview me, and I'm going to attempt to answer his questions. So, do you want to begin?
Yes. So, Here's what might be a fun little topic: China.
China.
So, after World War II,
I don't know if they can hear you. Actually, if you came around here, they could. Sorry for this. As you know, I'm not the most technical person.
oh, this is
On
the
planet
best we
Earth.
can do with what we have. I
Hold
think
it
it's
1 second, please. Don't go away. I think that's how you do it, actually. Let's
well,
see.
those are going to be touching the
Yeah.
table. Yeah.
So let's see. I think let me put it up there. Okay.
Oh, that looks good.
Yeah, here we are. So actually, I'll let you hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Number one horse. All right, Krishna. So, after World War II, many of these countries around the world were bankrupt from the war effort, but America was not. And then America became this global superpower right after World War II. And now it seems what's happening with COVID-19 is the economies of all these countries are being broken all around the world, except for China. So it's looking like this century will be the century of Chinese dominance.
Okay. First of all, I mean, only Krishna knows who's going to dominate, obviously, but most of the world, a lot of the world economy is coming back. America's economy is coming back. It's not really weak now. And I think Europe, Australia. So I would say, first of all, that many world economies are doing all right now and doing better and better, especially those countries like America, New Zealand, Australia, and some countries in Europe that have kind of controlled the pandemic. I mean, everyone knows that China wants to be the most powerful country in the world, the richest country in the world. I mean, they're quite open about that.
Mm.
And I certainly hope that doesn't happen, for the simple reason that I prefer that countries with religious freedom and freedom of speech are most influential. So unless China dramatically changed its stance on human rights and religious freedom especially, I think it would be a disaster for China to be. And I don't think that'll happen anyway. I don't think, I mean, I don't want to get into all the geopolitical details of what's going on now. I mean, politically, militarily, but China has been openly recognized as a threat to the rest of the world, and because they're very bold, aggressive actions, like in the South China Sea and other places. So I just, I mean, all we can do. Oh, the volume is too low. We had this problem before, actually.
We'll skip the macro stuff. So, there's one topic, hotly debated topic among us young Prabhus at the Barn Ashram, and that is...
I want to make sure everyone can hear you, so why don't you... Yes, go ahead.
I think I'm pretty close. Can y'all hear me? Hare Krishna.
This is Vidyananda, a recently initiated cult follower.
That's right. Number one cultist right here.
So go ahead.
So the jiva is eternal, but the debate, I guess, is where does the jiva come from?
Well, those two statements are kind of don't go together.
Yeah.
Because if the jiva is eternal, the jiva has always existed. There are some really bad ideas out there from people who are determined to argue against Prabhupada's simple revelation that we have to go back to Godhead. You can't go back to a place you never were. And so what is the sense of back to Godhead if we were never in Godhead? Some people say things that I find to be silly, like we come from the Tataksta Shakti, the marginal potency. I find this very silly because the marginal potency isn't a place.
The marginal potency is what we are.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's a category. It's an
Yeah,
ontological
yeah.
category. It's not a place you can come from. Like I'm from South Philly or something, or I'm from Romania. It's not a place that you come from, and it doesn't really solve the problem. People always say that, well, if we were with Krishna, why would we choose to do something so stupid and come to this world? And I try to explain that. I've tried to explain it 1,000 times, or probably much more than that. But if you say we come from the Tatastha Shakti, the marginal potency, which of course makes no sense since it's not a place, it doesn't solve the problem. Because, as we know, the material world is full of suffering. Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, there's suffering in this world. And there are two possibilities. One, that we are responsible for our own suffering, and therefore God is not crazy. God is not just some sick, powerful being that makes us suffer for no good reason. But if you say that we're suffering, it's not our fault, then that would be silly. That would mean that Krishna is completely mismanaging the universe, making innocent people suffer. So clearly, Krishna himself says in the Bhagavad Gita that I'm not responsible for anyone's suffering or enjoyment. Krishna himself says that. And so, therefore, if we are responsible for our suffering in this world, logically, it must be the case that we chose to come here. Because if we didn't choose to come here, then how could we be responsible for suffering here? Now, if we chose to come here, that decision is fair and meaningful only if we knew what the other choices were. In other words, if you thought, well, you can come to the material world or you can be a bubble in the causal ocean, someone might say, well, with all due respect to causal bubbles, I think that I will come to this world. In other words, your choice to come to this world is fair, and it's fair that you suffer for your decisions only if you knew what the other choices were. And if you knew what the other choices were, it means you had to know Krishna. Because if someone says, well, one option is that you can go to Krishna and you have no idea what that means, then it's still not a fair choice. It's like if you go into a restaurant and there's an item called Blittabans, and you say, what's a Blittaban? And the waiter says, well, we're not allowed to tell you. Do you want one?
If it's not poisonous, maybe I'll try it.
So the point is that people can be responsible for their choices only if they know what the options are. And so the only way you can justify Krishna allowing us to be, or placing us in the material world and therefore suffering, is if we chose it. And that choice is a real choice only if we knew what the other options were. And so no matter how you try to dance around the point that we have to go back to home, back to Godhead, no matter how you try to argue that no, we were never with Krishna, which is absurd, because Krishna says we were with him in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 4th canto. So even if you reject the Bhagavatam or try to interpret it out of existence, then still, if Krishna is perfect, and if, as Krishna claims in the Gita, he is perfectly just, samohang sarva bhuteshu, na me dveshosti na priya, I'm equal to everyone, I don't favor anyone, I'm not against anyone, I don't hate anyone, then you must have known all the choices, and you chose to come to this world. That's the only way you can harmonize, it's the only way you can integrate these two facts, that we are suffering in this world, and that Krishna says it's the nature of this world to suffer, and that we can only suffer fairly for conditions that we ourselves chose. And we cannot fairly choose to come to this world unless we know very clearly what the other choices are. And so therefore, if you're trying to say that we never knew Krishna before, but we chose to come to this world and we're suffering here, that would not be fair. So I find that no matter how you try to play with this, it doesn't work unless you acknowledge that you chose to come here, therefore you are responsible for your own suffering, and you chose it meaningfully because you knew what the other choices were. That means you knew Krishna and you knew everything and you still chose this. Otherwise, you have a major theodicy problem.
Right. So let's talk about that choice, that original choice. My understanding is that, well, to oversimplify it, myself as a jiva, I was bored in this state of infinite bliss with the Lord. This is oversimplified, I know. I'm caveat city over here. Um, and I said, oh, well, I'm going to do something on my own and see if basically I can be God.
Yeah. Well,
that's
I don't know if the jiva necessarily thinks I can be God, unless you say that to be independent is a feature of God. Only God is absolutely independent. But in any case, however you deal with the psychology of coming to this world, the fact is that we are responsible for that choice. It was a meaningful choice because there were options. And so if you say that we come from first of all, there's no Shastra that says we came from some marginal potency as if the marginal potency was a place, which it's not.
And so another thing about this is that we, as the marginal potency, part and parcel of Krishna, we are, in a sense, not fully, but in a sense, Krishna himself, coming into this world and then going back to himself. Do you see what I mean?
Well, we are not Krishna.
Right.
Krishna comes to this world. We're not. Krishna comes to this world to try to help us. If a priest goes into the prison to try to convince prisoners to change their lives, the priest is not a prisoner.
Right. Yeah.
So Krishna never becomes a conditioned soul.
Yeah, but we're part and parcel of Krishna. So
yes,
we're one little atom on his
also,
body.
Yeah, but also different. In other words, we are one with Krishna qualitatively, but we are individual souls. We have our own free will.
Mm.
And we are not God, and Krishna is not a jiva. And so there's a qualitative ontological oneness, but still we, and we alone, are responsible for our choices.
I think what I'm saying is I'm trying to portray the beauty of this, of how basically why are there jivas?
Why? Because first of all, we've always existed. Because Krishna is...
Isn't it because he's bored? That's how I see it.
Well, no, he's never bored because there was never a time when he was bored, and there was never a time when there weren't jivas, and Krishna can amuse himself very well with his own expansions. It's Krishna possesses infinite love, and he causes individual souls to exist with free will, and he's always done that. So as Krishna says, there never was a time when we did not exist. So Krishna has eternally expanded himself into innumerable jivas who have their own free will and who are therefore responsible for their own choices.
So why would a jiva, living in Godhead with Krishna, make a meaningful choice to leave the kingdom of God and come back down here?
Curiosity killed the jiva. I mean, because we are Krishna. What Krishna says is that Yadgatwan and Ivarjate, once you go back to the spiritual world, once you go there, you'll never return to this world. So Krishna, because if you only know one thing, one may be curious. What about other things? And so therefore, Krishna has created a world. He has eternally created this world in different cycles where we can come experience everything that is not Krishna, and in that way powerfully strengthen our love for Krishna. So that's what this universe is for. It's a place where you can experience everything that is not Krishna. And it's good because it helps us. Sometimes we need that. We need to be taught why it is that we should be with Krishna.
I think it's a quote by Carl Jung. He said, "The brightest light comes at the end of the darkest tunnel." And so in our original state, there's this innocence there. But when we come down and then go back again,
we're wiser.
Yeah, there's a taste difference.
We're wiser.
Yeah.
Here's something from Marcel. Have all of us had a previous relationship with Krishna? Krishna book, it is said, the mature devotees who have completely executed Krishna consciousness are immediately transferred to the universe where Krishna is appearing. In that universe, the devotees get their first opportunity to associate with Krishna personally and directly. Yes, we can't just take bits and pieces, the Prabhupada said this, or the editors did it a certain way. If you want to understand what Prabhupada is teaching, you have to look at Prabhupada's teachings. And if you look at Prabhupada's teachings, what you find is that we have to go back to home, back to Godhead. So that doesn't get changed because an editor edited something in a particular way, or Prabhupada said something in a foreign language in a particular way. Prabhupada's whole motto was back to home, back to Godhead. So let's see.
What is the
if
best
one is
question
always
to
doing
ask?
good, then is it necessary to believe in God? Well, since everything is coming from Krishna, if you're not grateful to Krishna, you're not doing enough good. This is from Sunil. If you are taking everything from someone and not acknowledging your debt to that person, then it seems you're doing good to everyone except the person that most deserves your consideration. So, since we are part of Krishna, since we exist by Krishna's mercy and He's giving us everything, if you want to do good, then you have to accept the person who's doing the most good to you. And if you don't acknowledge that, then your goodness is very limited. So, anyway, any other question? This is not going to be a long program.
So I have one more similar kind of question.
Yes.
Is there a difference between transcending the three modes of material nature and being in the mode of pure goodness? Is that just a semantic difference?
Yes.
Or?
Pure goodness is spiritual. Material goodness is different, still not completely pure.
So can one transcend the three material modes but not be quite at the point of the absolute spiritual goodness?
Well, one can try for impersonal liberation, which is beyond the modes, but still not perfect.
Okay.
So, thank you all very much for listening. Appreciate it. And hopefully, this is sort of a spontaneous little thing we did here. So thank you all very much, and hope we'll be together again soon. Hare Krishna.